welcome back to another in our series of retro reviews. This one's a little different than usual. First of all, you can see I have a guest. This is my friend Glenn. Say hi, Glenn.
Hi, Glenn.
And of course, I'm Sean for Flicks with Friends. And Glenn and I, well, at least up till recently, were on another podcast called Traveling the Vortex, which is a Doctor Who podcast. And every year, for the last, 3 years now, we would compete in something that has been called the Pod versus Pod Oscar Showdown, where a bunch of different podcasters from different casts would get together and predict the Oscars. And the losers had to review a movie picked by the winners. And we're just now getting around to it. It's late October. Of course, the Oscars were in February, so it's about par for the course for us, I think.
Well, I think the last ones we've had to review, we were quite a ways out, too, yeah.
So we are men of our word. We did get to it. We just took us a bit. And I don't know that this is necessarily punishment. But the winning team, mainly comprised of the gals from over at the Five-ish Fangirls with a few other friends, selected Sphere. I should have looked up the year because I don't remember, 98?
Yeah.
That sounds about right. Yeah. Movie with Sam Jackson and Dustin Hoffman and Sharon Stone, among others. Peter Coyote. I have a new headcanon.
Queen Latifah, which I...
Oh, yeah.
Surprised by that one. Forgot.
I have a new headcanon now with Peter Coyote. I think he's the same character from E.T.
Okay.
I think he's Keys.
Okay.
I think he's a government agent, and they send him different places to deal with different things
he's
that are
a little more gruff in this one.
Extra. Well, you know, after everything that happened, and the E.T. was 84, he's a little gruff now. We don't know what else he was involved in, so that's my headcanon, is that he went from this to this. Didn't end well this time.
Yeah, he's not going on. Spoilers.
And thus the end of Keys. So, you had seen this before, right?
I don't think I have. It was when they picked it, I thought I had. And in my old age, I tend to confuse movies, and I think this must have been one that I misremembered seeing because none of it I remembered.
Oh, really?
As I was watching it, yeah. I knew the premise of it, and I knew that it was a Crichton film, or a Crichton story. But beyond that, I didn't. I went into it kind of blind. So,
what did you think?
It's not a bad film. That's what's been consistent with. Now we tied this year, right? And that we're both teams are watching a movie of the other's choice.
They have to watch Barbed Wire,
which again, I don't think that's a bad. Well, it's not a great movie, but Sphere's not a bad movie. It has some missteps. It has, in fact, it's got some great suspense. It's a great sci-fi horror film. It's a great psychological thriller. And it does a really good job of making you believe. It feels predictable, but to its benefit, because it makes you believe that you've figured out what's going on here. And then it just takes that, left turn and surprises you. I think where it falls down is its pacing is very sporadic. It's all over the place. Yeah. It's all over the place. It doesn't make sense in some places, or I guess what I've decided is, after reviewing it, thinking about it, I think it was poorly edited. In fact, it feels like there's more film there that ended up on the cutting room floor. And I think that's because there are some jumps where you don't see a character for a while, and you think, okay, well, something must have happened to them. A good example is, and there's a reason why they do this, because it's revealed at the near the end that Hoffman's character did go into the sphere, but they do that, and then they cut away, but you don't see him, knocked out. Samuel Jackson gets knocked out by it after he exited. Sam Jackson's just back in the bed, and then we don't see Dustin Hoffman for a long time. So you're thinking, okay, what's happened here? And then he shows up, and he's in the kitchen or the mess hall or whatever you want to call it. And so it's pieces like that where it feels like there's characters missing for long periods of time, and then we come back to them. And that may have been an editorial choice so that you didn't see things coming. There was enough happening off screen that when they do the reveal kind of near the end, it's supposed to be more of a surprise.
And I think you're right. I think I remember I watched this on video when it came out. I was working at the video store at Blockbuster. And so I watched it. And of course, this was part of the run of Michael Crichton adaptations, because we got, Jurassic Park, and then all of a sudden the floodgates opened, and we had Rising Sun, and Congo, and Disclosure, I think, was in there. And it was just kind of boom, boom, boom. Oh, it's a new Michael Crichton film that's coming out this year. Mm-hmm. And Sphere was kind of one of the later ones in that run. And I remember everybody at the store was hyped. Everybody was just like, yeah, this is going to be great. And then we all kind of watched it independently and came back and went, this is not so great. And I haven't watched it since. So I remember it, but I don't remember it. And so kind of the same situation. I watched it this time, and I agree. I think there was a lot of it that felt disjointed. A lot of it felt like there was more there, like you were left hanging on an ellipsis, ... And you were expecting the next beat, and that next beat wasn't there. And I haven't looked. I probably should have done the research before this, but I suspect that it may have been a little bit of studio interference, that this was what we were going to do with it, and they thinking, no, we need Jurassic Park, we need Congo, we need one of the big ones. Let's get to the next action scene. Let's have the jellyfish attack. Let's have this. Let's have that. And so there were these little character moments that were cut out. And Sphere's not about the action beats. Mm-hmm. It's very much about the character moments. So it feels like there's some missing stuff there. And it'd be really kind of interesting to go back into the vaults and see if Barry Levinson actually does have some extra footage. He probably doesn't, but, a director's cut would be a welcome addition.
It is something that's intrigued me enough to read the book, because I feel like the book is probably a lot more sophisticated. I have a feeling that the book probably fills in a lot of the gaps that the film kind of leaves behind. And I think that you might have more of a satisfied explanation at the end, or at least not a so disjointed feeling of an ending with the book. And I could be wrong. Although, didn't Crichton wrote part of the treatment for this story, and then I can't remember who wrote the screenplay for this, but he had a lot of input in that story as well. So,
interestingly enough, had the same reaction back in the day at Blockbuster, and I had read Jurassic Park and Lost World and several others, and I'd enjoyed all of them, and I'll just read the book. So I'm reading the book, and I get to the end and go,
oh no.
And it just ends.
Oh.
It just... And
so more ambiguous than this.
I literally thought there were pages missing, because I picked up a second-hand copy of it by this point. But it was like, where's the ending of the book? But it's kind of is like, well, yeah, that matches with... So you'll have to let me know your reaction, and see if, again, because I'm thinking this is now 20-some-odd years ago. That maybe you get a different reaction off of it. But I remember thinking the book wasn't bad, but it wasn't one of his stronger ones.
Okay.
And then it ended, and I was like, where's the end?
Well, maybe the movie benefited a little bit from the action, from taking you out of that, those character moments for a little while, to at least give you a chance to have something to distract you. Because the action pieces are good. The jellyfish attacking Queen Latifah's character, that was intense. And I really kind of felt like there wasn't enough urgency from the rest of the crew. They almost, and what could you do? She was kind of out there by herself. You're going to have to put on scuba suits to go out there anyway. But
yeah, it's interesting how those decisions are made.
They seemed very just a lot of sitting around and listening to her, and probably to a point where Peter Coyote's character is just, they're not going to, just walk away from him or what. He's just telling, just walk through them. They're not going to, he was making it sound like they were not as much of a problem as they actually were, but they could see on the, if they were just hearing her reaction, which some of the characters in there are, then that would be one thing. But Coyote's character sitting in front of a monitor, seeing what's happening to her, and still trying to tell her that it's not as bad as she thinks it is, but it really is.
Yeah.
And so that felt kind of odd that people didn't react more than I felt like they should have to her situation. But that's good. Dustin Hoffman's character encountering the eel was really just pretty intense. The thing pounding on the thing and then going to turn the nozzle on so that what were they doing? Cutting off. Oh, they had to electrify the outside exterior of the.
Pulled the Galileo trick. From Star Trek.
But then she kept saying that you can't do that because he had told them earlier that they could cause a fire, and they're do it anyway. So they do it, and then there's no fire, and I thought, oh, okay. And then,
and then there's a fire.
There's a fire. And so I thought that good. That whole action sequence was good.
And lo and behold, fire.
I kind of was upset with the way they kind of dispatched of Liev Schreiber,
yeah.
His character. I think that he got cheated in his death, I think. Now, it based on the character of Dustin Hoffman having some remorse for not having done more, that he kind of froze up when that was happening. I think that was the reason why it was done the way it was done. But I thought his death was kind of hollow.
I kind of felt like the whole base under siege elements to it, that all of the deaths kind of rang a little hollow because, oh yeah, we found this thing. There's this alien spacecraft on the floor of the ocean, and we've got this submersible base, but we have a skeleton crew. And then they start dying off, and nobody seemed really concerned about the fact that aren't these people kind of in charge of like air and electricity and the things that you would need to run an undersea base, and you're running on a skeleton crew as it is, and then you lose one, and nobody seemed to want to ask that question about. So are we worried? And then the experts who came down to deal with the saucer are suddenly being pressed into service to, well, go turn that knob and do that thing, and they're like, okay. And again, I'm thinking to myself, shouldn't you have had a crash course on this? I mean, I understand time was a factor that you had to get down there, but then I don't know. Once the guy died, maybe we should teach you how to do part of his job just in case.
Well, and that's just it. Is they go through the pains of explaining the whole decompression process and going down to the facility, and they take great pains to explain what could happen and what you need to do and why you have to go through training. Yeah, and then to get there, and then when things happen, they're just like, push this button, go turn that off, and it's like, they surely don't know how to do this. How are they going to go down there and fix this kind of thing? But they end up doing it.
It's way worse instructions than Hammond sending her to go turn off the. You're looking for a flat primer button that they're not getting any of that detailed stuff.
Right.
Just turn that knob. It's a room full of knobs. So I had fun with that. I had forgotten just how creepy Jerry was. And you talk about the psychological moments of it, and how, just reading these words on a screen, and then, war game style, we give it a voice, and then it's, there was a lot of, I kind of forgot about how creepy that was. And I remember the reveal, feeling a little cheated.
When he starts saying, why do you keep calling me Jerry?
Yeah. And the reasoning for we got the translation wrong. And at the same time, I mean, it totally makes sense. That's a very logical thing that could happen in this type of situation. And it wouldn't be that the entire name was wrong. It would be one letter or two letters, that were messed up. But it was also, well, if this is wrong, wouldn't all the rest of this also be off? Because then it seems like there's a lot of words that wouldn't match up.
Right, because it seemed like the way they deciphered the code, the pattern was a lot more complicated than that. So if one little thing was off, it should have thrown sort of everything
Yeah.
off.
But yeah, that's a Hollywood mistake.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with that?
That was the thing about it, and I talked about the predictability. It felt like it's predictable. I rationed out, and I think you're supposed to ration out that it's Samuel Jackson's character that is Harry that's causing at least some of the events. The squid is very obvious because he's reading
20,000
Leagues Under the Sea. And so even to the point where when the computer or the entity started asking, why do you keep calling me Jerry? It was at that time and it clicked. I was like, oh, well, of course, because he's Harry, Jerry. Okay, that's what the big reveal is. And it did. It revealed that it's Harry. Well, as I'm sitting there figuring this stuff out and being very proud of myself and going, ooh, hey, okay, I'm predicting this. I know what's happening here. And then when you find out that when Sharon Stone's character is very much, no, it's you were the one that did the jellyfish, and you're the one, because Dustin Hoffman's character had gone in. I went, whoa, okay, because they had done that complete misdirect with Harry trying to make, I wish I could remember their in movie names, but trying to make Sharon Stone's character, seem guilty of something and get, Dustin Hoffman's character back on his side. And there's that whole intense exchange there, and Hoffman's very much getting into he's starting to believe even though he's the first one that suspects that Harry's the one that's, creating all this stuff. So we already go down that path of okay, now we're making Herbie suspicious, and I kind of thought, oh, okay, well, maybe there is more to this, because she did go off to the alien ship, or it's not even an alien ship, we keep saying alien ship, it was a ship with the alien entity in it, or the sphere in it, but she comes back, and I thought, okay, well, that's strange, why would she have done that? She had a rational story, was going to look for food or rations or whatever, because she didn't see him in the thing, and I assumed, okay, well, maybe Harry did make it so that she didn't see him there, or hit him or something, in order to set her up. And so there's that back and forth, and then when she finally locks Dustin Hoffman's character in the lab, and tries to explain to him that he's causing the thing, and I thought, I didn't see any of this coming. Didn't see any of that.
They do a really good job with painting Samuel Jackson with this big guilty brush, and they give you these hints, and then they point at him and go, he's the one doing it, and he's weird. He's a little, smartest man in the room, and then he becomes something different. Mm-hmm. And so you're on board with it right away, even though there's that little piece of you going, this is too pat, there's got to be, this is a misdirect, and then suddenly they give you the misdirect, and you're like, oh, aha, maybe but then it turns out that no, the misdirect is that the Agatha Christie style, they all did it. Mm-hmm. Ta-da! Mm-hmm. And so yeah, you get that same moment of, I'm going to pat myself on the back for figuring this out, and then I'm going to be mad that this movie's predictable, and oh, never mind.
I think the other thing they do really well is Harry figures out the conundrum that they have where that last entry is unknown. And he realizes that if that's unknown, then we don't make it out alive, because we would have been able to report that and they would have known, So that's the reason why there's an unknown entry unknown. And so all along I'm sitting there thinking, okay, how do they get around that? Because nobody can make it out. His rationale is sound. Nobody can make it out of this situation. So I'm ready for all of them to perish. I'm ready for this to be, a Stephen King horror novel where nobody makes it out alive. And they
hit you with that fairly early in the film. And it's like, oh,
which
you're
is
setting
surprising.
us up now.
Right, which is surprising. And that's why it's always in the forefront of my mind of okay, when does that shoe drop then? When do we get the big, wipe them all out? Or one by one, Tin Little Indian style. I think when I got to the end and realized that it was because they were just going to keep it, tight-lipped and just forget it, I felt a little cheated, but on the flip side of that, it works because that would be another reason why there wouldn't have been. They didn't have to die. They just didn't have to tell anybody or forget. That's what's, I think, ambiguous about the ending, though, is they all realize they have this power, that they've been gifted this power by this entity. This entity's not, malicious. It's trying to give them something, and they realize that they're not ready for it. They can't, even the future crew that ends up finding the thing, they kill each other. Well, yeah.
It's implied, yeah.
Yeah, not kill each other, but they brought on their own demise. And so even in the future, they're not ready for it. And when they realize that, now what's ambiguous about that is, did they just never say anything about it, or did they use the power to make themselves forget? That's what I want to assume happened, is that the last ounce of using the power was to make themselves forget. But then to me, if you're able to do that, you think you'd have better control over it at that point anyway, and you could just keep it, hang on to it. But I don't know.
I think
it's probably meant to be ambiguous.
Yeah, I think it was very much meant to imply that, we use the stones to destroy the stones, that they purposely forgot that this was what happened, and that way there would be no cracks in the story. There would be no, there'd
be no temptation in the future
temptation.
either for somebody to,
And it does two things with that. It kind of lets them off the hook, and it becomes just a, and what's the military going to do? It's an alien sphere. We don't know what happened. We weren't down there.
Yeah, no, but
so we're going to have to take it.
All of the witnesses are out.
You're going to be interrogated, of course, or I'm sure they're going to call it debrief.
Debrief, yeah.
But you're going to be interrogated, but you're literally not going to remember. So there's no way that any of them can crack. It also very neatly closes that time loop in order for it to still happen the way that it does. So, okay, that was the
Yeah.
I think it was a pretty satisfying ending. It may not be a satisfying movie for the reasons mentioned before, the editing and pacing, but overall, it's not bad.
It is not a bad movie. It does have a very poor Rotten Tomatoes score. It's got both critics and audience score are way down. I think the audience score is 17. Critics score, I think, was a little more generous. So there are a lot of people that didn't like the movie, but I just don't see. I mean, it has flaws. It has problems, but I don't see it as a bad film. It was entertaining. It was thought provoking, and I enjoyed it.
I think it's kind of the same thing that the studios. I think people probably went into it and went, "Oh, hey, it's from the guy that wrote Jurassic Park," and then instead got
expectations are here, and then
Solaris.
when they get in, they find something else. Yeah.
And admittedly, mental movies are kind of hard to do. It's a tightrope to try and. They work really, really great in fiction with book stories, but not necessarily so great in translating on the screen. So that was kind of a challenge that was set before to begin with.
I'm 3 for 3. I liked all the films we reviewed. You hated Problem Child. But again, I admitted that Problem Child is a guilty pleasure. So
I liked Gilbert Gottfried and Problem Child too.
There you go.
Yeah, that was better. There it is. So, as always, if you want to have us do a deeper dive, right now it's me, but maybe we can bring, if you ask nicely, maybe we'll bring Glenn back. If you'd like to have it do a deeper dive on a film of your choosing, please visit the Patreon page, because this is very much a labor of love, and it's kind of expensive. So every little bit helps there, and be sure to check out all the social media links, and this will get posted, well, I guess it won't get posted on Traveling the Vortex's site, because that is kind of no more.
YouTube channel still exists, we won't put it there.
We'll put it on the YouTube channel for Traveling the Vortex. Of course, it'll appear on the hosts of the Flicks with Friends family of channels that are set up, and looking forward to Oscars 2025, and getting a win.
We won't have to do this next
year. We won't have to do this. But if we do, I mean, not, I have to watch a movie. But, yeah, so thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
Always a pleasure to have you.
It's a blast to talk about movies.
Good. We should do more of that. And good night, everybody.